For today's review, we are looking at Martian Manhunter. Now, who is Martian Manhunter for those who have never heard of this character before? Well, the included data profile card will give us that information as usual. And as you can see on the front of the card, it is not comic book source material, it is figure photography. Back in 2022, and I think the later half of 2021 before that, they started using figure photography in the data profile cards, which wasn't a bad thing because figure photography is probably one of my favorite things to look at. I like when people can do really good photos with their action figures, and yeah, having a set of cards during this era from Mcfarlane be figure photography is pretty cool. So as you can see, the costume is from DC Rebirth. That's where this design is taken from. And on the back, yes, the font size is very tiny. Usually it's bigger now, but back then they were making it really small. So it reads, John Jones, the mysterious Martian Manhunter, is one of the last survivors of the planet Mars and was accidentally transported to Earth not long after the majority of his people were wiped out. Martian Manhunter is thought to be as strong as or possibly stronger than Superman and has a variety of powers including super strength, super speed, flight, telepathy, telekinesis, shapeshifting, phase shifting, regenerative abilities, and near invulnerability. Manhunter also has genius level intellect and strong leadership skills. Using his vast powers and skills, Martian Manhunter strives to protect the citizens of his new home, Earth. So that's basically a good rundown on who his character is. And yeah, he's not a joke. He is really freaking strong if he puts his mind into using his abilities in a way that can protect people, right? And we've seen countless depictions of his abilities in the animated shows, and it's just, this character is just really cool. I love everything about him. I wish he had more screen time in other depictions because, Justice League Animated gave him more screen time than ever. And later iterations of the animated stuff, they didn't really show him too much. He was just there. But it would be cool to see him in live action if they ever can get to that. But yeah. All right, so one thing that I love about this figure is just the fact that the costume just looks really cool. Now, it's not the classic costume that most people know, and including myself, the blue, right? He has a blue cape. They did make a gold label version of this 2 years ago. It was like a Target exclusive, and I didn't buy it because at the time, I already got this guy, and I didn't really want another version of the same figure, essentially, but just with a different costume. And I felt like one was already enough for the shelf in terms of having a Martian Manhunter to display with the Justice League. So, yeah, this is why I cannot compare this to the other one, unfortunately. So, but they're pretty much the same figure. It's just the costume's different. So let's start with the head sculpt. I like the way that the head sculpt came out. When this figure was revealed, like I would like to say in the later half of 2021, I was really excited for this one because the sculpting just looked amazing. And just to remind people who haven't looked at this figure in a long time, this is all brand new sculpt. Like, none of this is reuse from what I can understand. I think maybe the cape is reused. I could be wrong. But most of everything else on here, I think, was pretty much new at the time. So this was still during that period where they really prioritized on new sculpts. And I really love that. So as you can see, his forehead is very curved. When I look at this character, I'm just reminded of, like, that period during, like, I guess the 60s when people were so obsessed with, like, UFOs, and our depictions of aliens, or whether they're like tall green humanoid beings or like these tiny short gray aliens with big heads. Like, this is like that typical, like, depiction of what we think aliens look like. But of course we don't know what aliens look like, right? So but yeah, they really nailed that head sculpt really cool. And I like the red eyes. I wish it was a little bit more red so it looks like it's glowing, but again, it is what it is, so there's that. And in terms of his aesthetics when it comes to the rest of his body, it's really cool that there's a lot of like sculpting with his muscles, so you can see that he's pretty beefy, right? Like he can hold his own in a fight, and he's well trained physically. But of course he's also a shapeshifter, because you know, we know what his true form looks like, and it's not like this. He has like an actual Martian form, and it would be cool if they made that into a figure. I don't think they will, but I'm just saying, if they wanted to make another Martian Manhunter figure, it would be cool to get him in his like actual Martian form. I don't know what this form would be called. Like, you can say it's half humanoid Martian. Like, this is how he looks if he wants to maintain like looking like human but also Martian. But we know he also has a human form that he goes into. So very interesting. Yeah, with this character. Another thing I noticed, because I haven't looked at this figure in a long time, and now I remember, I don't know why they always have to change the colors on the joints. You know, just like a different shade of green compared to like, you know, the rest of the green on the arm and the body. I don't know if that's to indicate that it's articulation point. I can't speak. But yeah, I just noticed that, you know, they always do this with action figures. It's very weird. So, okay, let's also look at his clothing that he's wearing. So there is a lot of red and black, which I really love, and there's a lot of texturing going on. So you can see that it's like texturing all over, even if it's like one flat color painted down from like up here in the waist all the way down. The texturing stuff added in there makes it pop. They don't do that anymore these days. I don't know why. They kind of stopped doing this. It's really rare to see some figures have this kind of treatment. Like, I love all those textures, even if it's like covered in with this like same color paint. And we looked at a figure, you know, recently, which was the last video, that I brought this up again, the Frost King, right? Like, you can see that texturing there, even if it's all covered in the same color. But when you take a more newer figure, so let's just put Martian Manhunter down. Let's take Firestorm, for example, right? It's all flat. Like, it's just paint. There's no texturing. Like, there's a little bit, but like not like to the point of whatever this is. And I noticed that a lot of the older Mcfarlane figures from 2 years ago really prioritize on this type of detail, which, yeah, so I really like that. As for his cape, there's not much going on there. It's just, oh wait, actually there is. Oh, there is like some sort of texturing going on. It's really faint, but it's there. But it is all flat purple, right? But again, same color. It just buries whatever is in there. So yeah, aesthetic wise, really, really cool to see that there's this difference between like a figure from 2 years ago and of course a figure from like, I would say this came out a year ago, right? Yeah, so it's interesting. Okay, let's talk about articulation now. And the reason why I didn't bring up accessories is because there are no accessories. Yes, that is the one bummer with this figure, is that there are no accessories. There's no interchangeable hands, nothing, which I felt they could have given him interchangeable hands, because he has one fist hand, he has one gripping hand. How hard was it to just give a pair of hands so he can have both fist hands and both gripping hands? I don't know. But this is another one of those instances where a figure has no accessories included. So for articulation, his head is not really going to look up too much, because the way that they sculpted the neck and everything here, It doesn't really allow him to look up. He can kind of look down, not exactly. And when you rotate his head, he can, kind of look to the side. You do want to be careful, though, because like these collar pieces kind of do hinder his neck movement, I guess. But that's all the movement you're going to get. As far as arms, they can spread up a little bit, but because this shoulder armor piece thing, whatever this is, it's pretty much going to hinder articulation. Like, you're not going to be able to get this up, right? As you can see, you can't really move it all the way back. So, also hindered. He does have double articulation on the arms, double jointed, I mean. Let's just show it on this side because it works. There you go. He does have the swivel here with the sculpted ball joint. And he does have swivel with the hands, and they do move because there is articulation. As for his torso, this is the interesting part about his torso. So this strap piece right here that you see is a separate piece. It is not connected to anything with the waist, so you can move it. Now, he does have upper abdomen movement, but because this copy of mine surprisingly still feels like a new copy, even though it's 2 years old now, it rarely moves. You see that it does move, right? A little bit. It felt like I just took this out of the box, so interesting. His waist also moves as well, as you can see a little bit. It's very tight, but when you move it, these straps do move along with it. And if you don't like having it tucked under, you can, move them elsewhere. So, because they're not glued onto the body. They're actually loose. It's only the center piece that's actually glued. So, as for his legs, now his legs are kind of hindered by the skirt piece and the waist piece. So, if you want him to spread his legs out, that's all you're going to get. It doesn't really, spread out too much. Oh, wait, no, actually. Never mind, I take that back. That's actually pretty good. That's how long I haven't, held this figure up and articulated it in a while. As for his legs kicking out, oh! Yeah, even with this piece, wow, that's a surprise. That is actually a surprise because, this figure can do that. Can kick out even with the skirt piece. And then the last figure we looked at, this guy, this piece right here is really thick, and then you try to kick the legs, it can't even do it. So, wow, Martian Manhunter. Reminded me how good this figure is. Holy. Okay. He does have double jointed in terms of his legs, which is really cool. So if you want to get him into a flight pose, you can do that as well. Oh, and that's another thing. So, he can fly, right? Like in the story, he can fly. They did not give him a flight stand. They gave him a regular DC stand. So again, when you make a character that can fly, it would be nice to just include a flight stand. More than a regular stand. But, it is very random. So he does have feet articulation down here. They do rotate with the joint. There is toe articulation, as you can see. And that is basically it when it comes to the range of motion on this figure. And it's pretty cool. He can pretty much do certain poses that you want him to do. But for action poses or any kind of crazy sort of thing, understand that there are certain pieces that will hinder his movement. So, okay. Let's take a look at comparisons because we want to compare him to some other figures, how he stands next to them. So let's bring in Frost King, for example. Next to Frost King, he is, of course, smaller, and Frost King is taller, right? Not bad. And here is him next to, I guess, Firestorm, which is going to be the next review that we will make. So there you go. He is quite shorter than Firestorm. And then here he is with something that's not Mcfarlane. Here's a Marvel Select Captain America. Also a little bit shorter than Captain America. And last but not least, here is him next to Evil Lyn from the recent New Eternia Masterverse wave, and they scale pretty good. Surprisingly, most Masterverse figures scale pretty good with Mcfarlane DC Multiverse. Yeah, I noticed that recently, so pretty cool. And that is it for comparisons. And that is pretty much our look at Martian Manhunter, a figure that came out 2 years ago, but still a figure that stands out to me and has held up pretty well in all this time. I hope that Mcfarlane does make his cousin, Miss Martian, because that would be something to complete right there for the shelf. You got a Martian Manhunter, you got to have his cousin or niece, whatever you want to call her. You got to have a Miss Martian, right? And she also goes good with the Teen Titans Young Justice shelf, that whole thing. So I really hope to see that. And yeah, well, in terms of his regular Martian form, I don't think that'll ever happen. But if it does, that'll be surprising. So, all right. Well, if you found today's review and look at an older figure such as Martian Manhunter here informative, do give this video a like. If you want to subscribe to my channel to keep up with what I do on this channel, you can. You don't have to. In the end of the day, I make these videos for fun. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.